I had an episode where I was in the hospital and well, when I went in I was very like not responsive for a couple days because they're still trying to figure things. And so we had just lost my grandmother, and in that whole like first 3 days, my grandmother came to me and she was like basically saying, she had she had transferred into heaven, right? So she had come to tell me that she had passed on and she's safe and she built a whole house there. So if I was ready, I could come with her, or I could, wake up essentially and come back to my family. And that's what happened. Once again, she kind of laid it out like it was an option. Like, you can either come here or you can go back down there.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. And I'm your host, Julie Cluff. And as always, I'm going to remind you to subscribe, like, comment. We love your comments. It's so fun to read your comments and how the different guests and their stories, how you relate to those. So be sure and leave a comment. We would love to have that conversation and that dialogue. I am super excited today to introduce you to Sarah Clayton. Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, Julie.
Yes, Sarah and I met at a local farmers market here outside of Nashville, Tennessee, where I live and where you live, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And Sarah was has a gemstone booth that she curates, and we had a brief conversation. I'm like, you need to come on the podcast. I need to hear more of your story. This is how I get to book these are my coffee dates essentially.
Yeah.
Is interviewing people. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started talking about your story.
Yeah, well, first off, Julie, thank you for even inviting me on here. It's such a privilege. But my story kind of started years ago when I got ill. But in 2021, I was really able to like focus and dive into it. And I built a gemstone jewelry company where I source all my stones and make all the jewelry. So I have a whole line of jewelry from bracelets, earrings, necklaces, anklets, all the fun things that we can just wear. And really, I want the whole point was to share my love of gemstones and really connect them with other people, and just educate people on how they work holistically and how they can help you in your daily lives.
Oh, I'm excited to dig into every bit of what you just shared. So take us back when you were a child. What was your religious or spiritual background as a child?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Catholic family. We went to church on Wednesdays and Sundays. I mean, Saturdays were the option, later as you grew up through Catholicism. So we'd always go to church weekly. I grew up with a brother and a sister, two-parent household. My mom converted from Lutheran to Catholic. So kind of, I wasn't around when that happened, but, still like talking to her about kind of what, how she grew up, and then the difference in Catholicism. So, yeah, I grew up very Catholic.
Interesting. You mentioned and and did that give you a spiritual base, or did that just feel like religion? Because I think for a long time, even surveys that were given, years ago, they would equate the two things. Are you religious meant are you spiritual? But they're really two different things. So what was
Right.
your spiritual connection as a young Catholic?
Yeah. So, I mean, once again, I think Catholic doesn't define you, but for me, it was just a religion. Like, it was just something I had to do. I never felt connected to it. I never really, if you want to like buy into it, it was deeper for me on more levels. I never felt like I had to be at one place to really connect with the other side, or kind or believe, to really pray or believe, or however, that might identify with somebody else. I mean, I always believed in God, or, all those things. But It was more of just like, this is what we did. It wasn't until later in life to where I was like, you know what? I just want to learn. The Bible, I think, plays a role in a lot of things, and I just want to learn about it. And as a Catholic, you're jumping around, from story to story, and there's no connection. So as I grew and went through college and moved to Nashville, I really more took the Catholic out and just learned about what being Christian was. But once again, I think there's so many neat things about so many different religions that I just love to learn about them. So it wasn't anything like I would say from my childhood that's like really stuck with me. Of course, when I go home, I'm still going to church with my parents. I'm still, saying the Lord's Prayer, all those things, because it's just ingrained in your head. But yeah, it wasn't anything specific. I didn't really connect with the Catholic side of it.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned you became ill and that
Yeah.
kind of shifted things for you a little bit. At what
Yes.
age was that?
28. I
Okay.
was a little older. Yeah, 28 I was going through a lot of things, and stress can do a number on a body. And was diagnosed after 11-day stay at a beautiful hospital room. It was like that Mexican vacation you always dream about. Um with ITP, which where my body does not produce platelets. It was essentially everything was shutting down, and I ended up staying in the hospital for about 27, 28 days.
Wow.
We're 10 years out, but I would say that really shifted a lot, because, at that point it was life or death, essentially.
Yeah. How did that shift things? What happened during that time that caused you to kind of think about things differently or look at things
Yeah.
differently?
So in September of that year, we lost my mom's mom, and I wouldn't say I was close with my grandparents, but that's still like when you're older and you lose somebody, it kind of hits a little different. And I had an episode where I was in the hospital, and well, when I went in, I was very like not responsive for a couple days because they're still trying to figure things out. My parents came down. It was a whole ordeal, as you can imagine. My parents are 14
Wow.
hours away. And so we had just lost my grandmother, and in that whole like first 3 days, my grandmother came to me, and she was like basically saying, she had transferred into heaven, right? Because as Catholics, and my mom didn't grow up Catholic, but I did. So as a Catholic, you believe in purgatory. So you like sit in this holding room essentially, right? Until you get enough prayers to pass you along to the next one. So she had come to tell me that, she had passed on and she's safe, and she built a whole house there. So if I was ready, I could come with her, or I could, wake up essentially and come back to my family. And that's what happened. Was I essentially in that transition period, I just kind of started questioning a lot more. I kind of always, even growing up, we always lived in really old homes. So, you hear little cracks, you might hear a voice or two, you might go into the closet and be like, oh my gosh, or like, I'm not going in the basement after dark, you never know what you're gonna find down there. Um, so I kind of always had that like sense, but I had never like dove really headfirst into it. And when it was my grandmother, like somebody you love, you trusted, I was like, holy Hannah, like what is happening here? So I would say that she's really the reason why she, once again, she kind of laid it out like it was an option. Like you can either come here or you can go back down there. And it was an outer body experience. Um, and if I back up in September, the last conversation I had with her was about how every time I find a penny, which I know sounds crazy because people just throw change, but anytime you find a penny, like that's her speaking to you from the other side. So like that's the other thing I've always connected with too, is when I'm in like questioning, like, am I in the right spot? Am I doing the right thing? I like look down, and I'm not joking you, there's a penny there that may have not have been there. I even find them in my house. It's so wild.
That's crazy. I have to say, I never find loose change
Okay, okay.
hanging around. So I think that's incredible. How did she get that message to you about the pennies?
She was so she passed away on September 27th, and like around 7:30, 7:45 p.m. And I'd flown in from Nashville that day, I want to say at 1 p.m. And in those 6 hours I was there, I was able to have a conversation. She was able to speak, and that
Okay.
was the last conversation that I had from her as she was alive on her deathbed,
Okay.
essentially.
And she told you she was going to send you pennies?
Yes. And if
Pennies
they were
from heaven.
yes, and if they were heads up, that meant like you are right where you need to be. And if their tails up, then it's you're in the right vicinity. You just really need to like hone into what you're thinking about.
Interesting. And that has that felt like it's held true?
Absolutely. I would say like after a week, and I might get emotional, but I would
That's
say after a
okay.
week of like her not being there, and once again, I wouldn't say I was close to her. Um, I would say that like after about a week, I was down back here in Nashville, serving and bartending at the Chili's in Brentwood, and I looked down and I found a penny heads up, and I like it just stopped me in my tracks because at that point I had been in Nashville for about a year and a half, and I was like questioning whether or not like is this something I should stay and do? Like, am I, all the questions you have
Yeah.
as an adult, especially in a new city. Um, and you're building your friends, you're building your reputation, you're building everything. And so I had always just had faith that she wasn't going to steer me wrong. If anybody was not going to steer, it would be her.
Yeah. Awesome. What brought you to Nashville? And where did you live growing up?
So I lived in a small town called Esterville, Iowa, or named Esterville, Iowa. We have like two ways of fame, or I don't know if that's how you say it, but so the word blizzard came from Esterville, Iowa. And then also like we had a meteorite fall right in our town, so those are our claims to fame. Fun fact, our high school midget or our high school mascot was a midget, so
Oh,
that's
wow.
another thing. Yeah, wild. um
That's
but
crazy.
it's like totally not, appropriate a lot of the time. But when you're back home, it's all about that. I moved here. I was in a relationship before, so I moved here with my then husband.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just as a side note, I was a Clearwater tornado.
From Iowa?
No, from Florida.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
I think
hilarious.
the high school mascots are hilarious. But yeah, and my brothers went to a different high school north of where I went to high school, and they were spongers
Oh,
because
wild.
it was the high school was near the sponge dogs. But that's off topic. Let's get back to the pennies and the signs
Yeah.
and your grandmother. Now, how long had it been since she passed when you were in the hospital and had this experience?
Um, a solid 2 months, two
2 months.
months, and maybe a couple days.
Okay. Did you find, I'm just because the way that message came through or the way that you said that message, it almost sounded like did you find that it caused you to think, do I need to go back to the Catholic Church?
No, that was never a thought, honestly.
Interesting.
Um, I it was and I was very active in church growing up, but I never once questioned after I like left my parents' house if I was going to go to church or not. It was always like something was always in me, but I didn't have to be somewhere to believe or to ask for, a way or any of that. It
Yeah.
was always just like follow your intuition. It's not going to guide you wrong. But once again, like when it would have been 28 when my grandmother passed away, and it was just like asking, like she just kind of was there when I got sick and just kind of led the fight.
Interesting. Interesting. Did you feel any in that experience when she was saying you can go with me or you can stay here? Did you feel some conflict in that, or did it feel like, oh, well, of course I'm going to stay? I mean,
I don't really recall all the emotions. I remember just like thanking her and being like, she, of course, your grandmother is always going to make you feel like warm and secure, and like kind of probably tempt you with like your favorite food she made for you, right? But I remember just feeling like it was an option, and I had to weigh it carefully because either way, like my parents were there when everything was happening. So it was like I could hear them speaking, but I could not conversate with them. And once again, I was conversating with my grandmother, and we kind of had our like, I want to say we like touched base. I don't know how long it had been. I don't know the time that I had been, in that space, but I remember like catching up with her and just feeling like confident. I just woke up, right? I just woke up and was like, oh hi, like I mean, and I don't even remember my first words, but I remember being like, oh hello.
Yeah, yeah. How did that how did that experience change things for you? Because it almost sounds like the way that you shared that, it sounds like it's almost like she's like, yeah, the structure of heaven is like this, and I got to move on. And um, but how did that change things for you spiritually?
So spiritually, it was more of like I need to dive deeper because I don't think everybody has these moments.
Yeah.
And it was like I wanted to know more about it. I also wanted to, and I'm not gonna lie to you, Julie, there were probably a solid like year and a half there. I mean, I didn't speak about much of anything because
Yeah.
it's like a sacred space of who can I trust with this information? Who's gonna think I'm crazy? And I would say the first person I told was probably my roommate Courtney, and she was not religious at the time, and funny enough right now she's converting to Catholicism, so it's just full circle moment. But she just kind of looked at me, and she was kind of on the edge of like, does she believe or does she not believe? And when I told her this, she was, I'm not gonna say it like changed her and it like woke her up at all, but it was, I think it had her gears moving of like, okay. And so every now and again we would just talk about it. Like she would ask me more questions, and it didn't leave our house because we lived together.
Mm.
And then when I really started diving into the gemstone is when I really realized that like this was a gift and I could connect with more people. And my story, I just had to accept it. And my story really opened up the world to me when it came to talking to other people, breaking the ice. And when I connect with people through gemstones, a lot of people, they are looking for a way or they're going through some things. And I want to share with them like, hey, it's all about intention. I think life is about intentions. And so yeah, I guess it really changed me in a way of not right away. It took me some time, but yeah, I was very thankful, for that safe space that she did give me. And she didn't judge me, right? I mean, instantly you constantly like, oh, I just word vomited on somebody who has no idea what I'm talking about, but she didn't think I was crazy, so I was like, okay, we can move forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a similar experience to what you're talking about because there's this personal integration time we need to mull over, to ponder, to think about what we experience, to really allow it to settle in. And sometimes when we talk about those things too quickly, it's I don't even know how to explain that, but it's almost like the energy gets spread wider without our ability to make it our own first, I
Hmm.
guess is what I'm trying to say. Um, so you started talking about your experience, and you mentioned that you did you go on to have more experiences with spirit connecting with you then?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say once again, it like laid low, right? I didn't want to just word vomit on everybody about my story. I didn't want judgment because once again, at 28 years old, and you're still experiencing life, and you're still trying. I mean, especially in a new city, right? You're still trying to find your friend group. You're still trying to make sure this is the career path you want. And then one day everything just explodes, and the career you thought you were gonna go in, you're going a completely different way. So when I connected with gemstones was in July or August of 2021, so a good 5 4 years 5 years 4 years um after me getting sick, going and going through treatment and coming into remission and all those things, and really being able to understand what had happened. And I went on a trip to Savannah, Georgia. And outside of Savannah, Georgia is Tybee Island. And Savannah's known as one of the most haunted places in the United States, right? And I had never been to, that side of the coast. I When we traveled, we always went to Minnesota. As I got older, I, Minnesota for the lakes, Florida for the we were like the Naples area.
Mm-hmm.
So the Georgia side of things was totally different. It's a totally, different atmosphere. But in Tybee Island, they have like this little colorful hut market. And I walked into one of these places and she just happened to have gemstones and she was making things. And was never like, I always liked rocks, but I didn't know why. And yeah, so my path of gemstones really started then. And when I got home, well, I talked to the owner. She is originally from Wisconsin. And so we kind of bonded over the Midwestern thing. And she was talking to me about these are protective stones and getting into the haunted place. And I've always like loved the paranormal side, like the
Mm-hmm.
TV shows, like all the things. But I don't want any like you don't want to be connected with negative things. You want all the
Right.
positive. And so it was really about like learning the protective, learning to protect you, learning to protect your energy, but also being able to connect to that side of things. And so when I got home back to Nashville, I my rock collection just took off. And then it was diving into what every stone meant and how does that connect to me, or why am I attracted to this stone? Why do I feel the need to share that information with somebody else? So in 2021 is when that really started working. So that's when I really do feel that like that other side was starting to be like, okay, open your eyes. You can share this gift now. You've kind of found you're not to your people yet, but you're starting to pave the way.
So interesting. And so how I guess I'm a little curious about like how the gemstone thing opened you up further.
I would say that that was kind of what I needed as far as like the vehicle for me to accept it myself. Because once again, I didn't, after sharing everything with Courtney, I knew that it could be accepted by the right people, but at the same time, I didn't have anything tangible to hold on to, minus this little angel that showed up in my hospital room that I think one of my family members sent me. But like there was this little angel, and once again, it broke and it doesn't have a wing. So it wasn't like anything, but it was like the gemstones really allowed me to dive in deep, deeper into what this connection would be, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those that aren't familiar with gemstones, and I love gemstones myself, and I have quite a collection, and I added to my collection when I met you, and I love to wear them, and I love to have them around. I love reading the messages from them. A lot of
Mhm.
times I'll get something though, and I'll put it on later, and I'm like, I don't remember what stone this is, but I just trust that
Yeah.
it is what I need in that moment. So talk about like the qualities of a gemstone and why different gemstones have different qualities, or can, some are for protection, some are for enhanced psychic abilities, some are for
Yeah.
enhanced love or peace or comfort. Sh- Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, that is a wide subject. So
It is.
the the way that I kind of go over it with people that are new, or we're in the South, Julie, so we have to really be cautious. Or what word am I looking for? I like to be respectable of everybody's
Belief system.
beliefs. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I always ask with like, do you know anything about gemstones? What do you know about them? And then, they'll say, oh, I just think they're pretty great. I love that for you. If they're like, oh, I know a little bit, I carry rose quartz. So rose quartz is known as the unconditional love stone. That one and amethyst, I feel like they're very powerful stones, but there's so many more. But hey, if that's your level of gemstone knowledge, then I'm going to help build on that. And so it's really, I really kind of turn it around in the experience when you shop with me or when you come and see me is what's going on in your life? Where are you at? What can I help with? What, what stress? Because everybody has stresses, but if you can identify your stress, I can probably find a stone that's going to help you. So, the stone of truth, wisdom, in self-expression is going to be lapis lazuli. But lapis lazuli is also made of magnesium. So it helps with migraines. It also helps with like IBS and intestinal issues. So I just like to go deeper into things with people because me giving you lapis that's going to help you with, your intestinal issues is also going to help you express yourself, show self-expression. It's going to have you be true to yourself as well as true, share your truth with others. And I don't know if that answers your question directly, but it's more along the lines of there's so many different stones out there that can help you in many different ways. It's just about how when we connected, it's just about, hey, this is the knowledge I have. I could go way deep on these stones, but just kind of seeing where that knowledge is. Or you have angel light stones, and a lot of people that are attracted to angel light stones or even forms of turquoise, they've recently lost someone or they've been questioning themselves at like, are they okay? Are they settled? Is everything fine? And that, really helps. Fluorite is an emotional healing stone. So it helps with traumas. It also helps with emotional healing. So it's like, okay, what are you going through? Like this stone is here to acknowledge that there's a problem or you're working through something. Let's find a solution, like really building intention with that stone.
Yeah. Well, and as you were talking, I was like looking at my connect collection of gemstones that are on my desk
Yes.
right here. Um, so if somebody wanted to, let's say that somebody purchased a rose quartz, like they've never been connected to gemstones, but they like the idea of it,
Mhm.
and they purchase a rose quartz, which I actually have one right here on my desk, along
Yeah.
with a lot of other things. I have this lovely bear
Oh,
that,
it's so beautiful.
yeah, that I love that sits here, and I wish I could remember exactly what stone it is, but and if we were in person, you could probably tell me. Um, but if somebody was just getting started and they purchase, let's say, rose quartz, how would you suggest that they connect to that stone, or how would you suggest that they use that energy?
So that's a loaded question, Julie, but let's get into it. So,
You know
rose,
too much to be
yeah. So,
for a
ro-
short answer.
for a short answer, I'm doing my best. So rose quartz is, like I said, the unconditional love stone. So whether you are trying it for like self-expression, a lot, we live in an age to where like self-acceptance and self-love is down. So it's about showing yourself self-love, accepting self-love on oneself, showing more grace to yourself, right? Because showing unconditional love can be seen in many different ways. And so all about accepting oneself, showing some yourself grace in situations. How do you connect with that stone? So I connect in many different ways, but the easiest way for me is I light a candle. And once again, the color of the candle, that might be for a different day, but we can light a white candle for now. A white candle is all about opening up doors. It's, clearing energies. So it's all about just like sitting with your stone, thinking positive thoughts. And then, carrying it around or, wearing it as a piece of your jewelry as self-expression too, and really take like in a moment where it's hard, just really holding it and like reminding yourself like, okay, I can show myself grace. This is a hard time, but I can do it. People have negative thoughts all the time, and it's like, let's get those negative thoughts out of the way. Let's hold our stone. Let's take some deep breaths. Let's watch a candle flame. All those things.
Yeah, it sounds like an anchor.
Yes, that's a great way to put
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, sounds like a great anchor to, and especially when we have intentions, and then we can choose a gemstone that coordinates or correlates, I should say, with that intention, then it just amplifies that power or that intention.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting. Um, so I would love to talk a little more about your connection to the other side, like how that shows up for you now. And
Yes.
do you practice mediumship, or is it just something that happens, or
That is wild. Yes, all of the above. So I break the ice. Okay, I shouldn't say that. It comes in many different forms. Sometimes you can walk up to my table and I can just feel your energy and I can feel there's something happening with you and we need to talk. And a lot of times people just open up. I'm somebody that can say hi to you and then I know your whole story. And I do the same to others. And I'm just an empath at the end of the day. And just the vessel. But also, I'm going to use my good friend Katie, and it might be a great example, it might be a bad example. We'll decide later. But her father passed away in October of 2025, and there were a lot of things that happened in their relationship, and in he had been coming to me since December. And at that point, Katie wasn't open to it. And I'm somebody who, especially when I love you and I care so deeply for you, I'm not gonna talk to that person until I have your blessing. Now strangers come up, right? There are people on the other side come and talk to me, and I listen because I don't know them yet. I don't know, and they need a message to get out here. So when it came to Katie, I knew that I was not about just to talk to her father without her blessing, because I didn't want to have information that could be so personal to her, and she's my best friend. So I was like, I'm going to wait and get your blessing. And I told that to her dad. I said, hey Fred, I know that she loves you. I know that I love you. All this is happening. Let me talk to Katie. Well, Katie wasn't open to as somebody grieving, actively grieving, it's really hard.
hmm
And so she's worried about 50 other things. When somebody passes away, there's many different things you have to get done. And so I was giving her space to do this all. And but she knew he was here. And one day she called me and she was talking about quarters. And she would always get quarters out of her dad's truck. And so I knew that was like hinting at him. And I said, Katie, I'm just going to tell you, he's been here for about a month and a half. Like, he wants to talk to me, but I wanted to talk to you first. And at that point, my dog, she shot up and I was like, he's here right now. Like, she can see things, animals have this other sense. So I was like, he's here right now. He wants to talk. And I was like, are you open to it? And she was like, yeah. And I said, okay, great. So I always say, and it's just for terminology or it's just for someone to kind of understand. I always say I have these dreams. They're not really dreams, but it's just way easier to express that to somebody. So
hmm
him and I had an in-depth conversation, and it was about a 4-hour conversation, 4 or 5 hours. And the message that he really wanted to get across was there was so many things going on, Katie, just focus on the controllables right now. Like, and he was talking about, first of all, he doesn't call her Katie, he calls her Catherine, and that is how she knew that it was him. Because I kept saying, he kept saying, Sarah, just tell Catherine. Oh, Catherine. And I was like, oh, yep, Katie, it's your dad. And so there's that. So I sat down with her and we talked about it. And then I talked to her mom about it. So really, they come whenever they want. In November of this year, I was so overwhelmed. I wasn't getting any sleep. I had to go to my mentor in the game and I had to say, help me because I need sleep. And so we went out and we got 2 stones that help like block psychic abilities, so I can kind of do more controlling of turning it on and turning it off, because I love it and I don't want to come across that it's exhausting, because it's literally one of the best things I've ever tapped into.
Yeah.
But I need my sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes down to spirit boundaries.
Yes.
It's like they're living in your house and you're like, go find your own house. I'm closing the door. I'll open it when I'm up in the morning or
Yes. We
I'm
can talk then.
I'm closing the door. I'm putting up the fence. I love you guys, but come back when I'm awake.
Mhm. Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
I guess also I love the nighttime. I believe it's more fluid in the nighttime than in the daytime. About like in the nighttime, I feel like spirits move more fluid
Okay.
and they're a lot more free, I feel like. In the daylight, it I have conversations. But I would say that in the nighttime, especially, I don't know, it's so wild and random, but yeah, no, in the nighttime I just feel like they're a little more free. In the summer, in the sunlight, they're like move a little slower. So like to get to their story, it's a little slower sometimes.
Yeah, interesting. Well, and do you also feel like that just the daytime there's just more activity and more distraction? So,
Oh, yeah, I never thought of it like that. Absolutely.
yeah, even our senses are a little more overwhelmed. So it'd be like being in a big crowd, talking to somebody in a big crowd versus talking to somebody in a room alone.
That is a great way to put it. I never thought of it like that. I've always just been like, okay, I'm not trying to rush you. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I find that when I just before I go to bed sometimes, but mostly right when I wake up in the morning, so much inspiration comes. Like there's just
Yeah.
so many downloads that come as I'm
hmm
waking up. And I find myself on my phone just like typing, if you will,
Yeah.
inputting all that information into my phone as quickly as I can before it all disappears. Um, Sarah, what else would you like to share with us? Because I know we're running short on time. What else would you like to share with us before we move on? Then I have a couple questions I'd like to ask everyone.
Yeah, no, I would just say to the ones that are, having you think everything's a little off or a little odd or you're different, like absolutely embrace that. And just enjoy who you're becoming because it's a wild ride, and if you just hold on, you will find why. You will find your why. And you don't always have the whole why, but you have little bits of the puzzle. And that's what I love, because this network has really shown me so many different things, and things that I don't even make sense of yet, which I'm sure you have those same thoughts of where you're like, why do you keep showing me this, or why is this word keep showing up, or and then every day, or it's not even every day, I don't want to give myself that expectation, but it's just wild when things come together and you're like,
It
that's
is.
why. And pay attention to yourself, because a lot of times I have the, as Julie said, the download, and I can't figure it out. Like the hair standing up on my arm. Like, okay, something's happening, but I now it's like really telling myself to pay more attention.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's so subtle.
So
And when
subtle.
we start paying attention to our own subtle energy, that's
Mhm.
how spirit's communicating with us, whether that
Yes.
be loved ones on the other side, or angels or guides,
Mhm.
whatever that may be. Okay, so a couple questions I like to ask all my guests. And the first is there a spiritual practice that you enjoy doing on a regular basis? And then, of course, share how people can connect with you.
Absolutely. So I had mentioned candles. I am very big into a, dressing my candles, lighting my candles. That's just where I feel the most energy, like the most shift. I pay attention to the candle flame. And I
Hmm.
have my stones around, and I might have my tarot deck, just flipping through and like really wanting to understand. And I'm asking the spirit guides for clarity at times, or you might show me a card and I'm like, why did you give me that card? Right. So it's like really that is my big connection, is in a quiet space. I love my apartment in the morning, right as the sun is coming up and you see the energy like burning off, like the night is just burning off, and I light a candle, enjoy your cup of coffee. Those are my favorite moments. You can say the same at nighttime too, like as the sun is just going down, you can light your candle and, you just wipe away your energy. Of course, I always have Palo Santo burning with my candle, or even white sage, just depending on what energies I'm trying to kind of shake up, which, if that's too much for y'all, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, no, we talk about all kinds of things here, so it's awesome. I actually have some Palo Santo spray sitting here on my desk.
Yes, no, that those are my favorite, and that is really what I want to share with everybody is no matter your level, like if you're questioning things, you can always find the answer. You are the energy. Just pay attention to yourself because like you had stated, just so subtle sometimes, like the hair just kind of creeping up or like the cold shivers, like what's happening? Where can you find me? At Bead Creative Nash on Instagram. I travel around Middle Tennessee 5 days a week to different farmers markets, and I just love to share my knowledge. I love deep conversations, they're my favorite. And I mean, I might not be able to answer all of your questions, but a lot of times your loved ones do come to me as you're standing there, and I'm just like, hey, they're here. Like, this is wild, but they're right here.
Do you typically find that you have good response from people when you share that their loved ones are there? Do you ever have a response where somebody's like, I don't want to hear from them? Or I actually was doing a practice reading with another medium. This was a couple of years ago, and her father came through, and it was very clearly her father. The evidence was just so clear it was her father. And she's like, I don't want to talk to him. I said, well, he says that's okay. He understands, and she says, well, he has to understand because I don't want to talk to him. I'm like, okay.
I haven't had, I wouldn't say I've had negative responses to telling them their loved ones here. I've had more negative responses or been called different names because of my rock collection.
Mm,
And once again, if I feel that judgment, I'm not about to share with you.
yeah,
So you could
yeah.
be missing out on your sister or somebody you've been questioning, right? But my favorite are when like you're standing at a market and you're just smiling, talking to your friend next to you, and somebody like beelines to you. And they're like, I don't know what the connection was, but I just saw you and I had to come over here. And I was like, oh, like on 2 Saturdays ago, I was at an art market and I connected with this woman, and she had three major losses, and she carries their obituaries with them or with her of them. And she
Wow.
was like, do you see these people? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna say it's not a picture. Like it's not like their picture, but I was like, they're here and they're letting you know that, they're safe, they're sound. They want you to know that, everything's great. They also want to apologize, or your dad wants to apologize, all those things. And the more people that are open about it are the ones that leave like, more fulfilled. That's how I feel.
Uh-huh.
And then we normally share some tears because if you cry, I cry, and it's just over.
Yeah, yeah. I get that. Thank you so much for being here today. This has been a delight, as I knew it would be when we met a couple months ago, and I said, you need to come on and we need to chat.
Yes, and I'm so sorry. I would love to go deeper with you, and we could, continue this. This was so fun.
Yes, this was awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you. Have a great day.